During my son's wedding, his bride whispered to me, "Buy us a house, or I'll tell everyone I'm pregnant with your child." I stood up calmly, reached into my pocket, and handed her a small gift. She screamed. She expected money for luxury. Instead, she got sweet revenge. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The fabric swatches were scattered across my desk when the phone rang. I'd been comparing burgundy and navy upholstery samples for the Wiesbaden branch, holding them under the fluorescent lights. Thursday afternoon, one of those quiet February days when the business runs without crisis. Dad, are you there?" Ethan's voice hit me like an electric shock. My son didn't call during work hours unless something had happened. "What's wrong?" I straightened in my chair, already running through possibilities. Accident, job loss, health scare. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect." His words tumbled out breathlessly. "Sophie's pregnant. We're getting married in 2 weeks on Saturday. I know it's fast, but when you know, right?" The swatches slipped from my fingers. Ethan, my son who'd been through 3 failed engagements, who'd avoided commitment for the past 5 years, pregnant, married. "Ethan, that's..." I searched for words that sounded genuine. "That's wonderful. I'm thrilled for you. I'd love to meet her properly tonight. Maybe you can come for dinner." I glanced at my watch. 3:15 p.m. Absolutely, 7 p.m. After he hung up, I leaned back in my leather chair and stared at the ceiling tiles. Ethan hadn't mentioned Sophie a month ago. Now she was pregnant and they were planning a wedding. The timeline felt compressed, rushed. But maybe that was just my old-fashioned perspective. My late wife Barbara and I had dated for 3 years before marrying. Different generation, different rules. I wanted it to work for him. I wanted it badly. The market on Burger Street had decent steaks. I picked 2 ribeyes and a New York strip, grabbed asparagus and fingerling potatoes. Wine. I chose a Rheingau Pinot Noir, nothing too pricey but respectable. At home, I set the dining table with Barbara's porcelain, the ivory plates with delicate gold rims she'd inherited from her grandmother. If Ethan was starting a family, this moment deserved recognition. Traditions mattered. They arrived precisely at 7 p.m. Ethan came through the door with that nervous energy I remembered from his childhood piano recitals, practically vibrating. The woman beside him moved differently, fluid, controlled. Her heels clicked with purpose against my entryway tiles. "Dad, this is Sophie." She was striking. Dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. Her handshake was firm, almost aggressive, and her smile stayed on her lips without reaching her eyes. "Ethan talks about you constantly." Her gaze slid past me, cataloging the living room, the furniture, the art on the walls. "What a beautiful home." "Thank you. Please come in. Dinner's almost ready." Ethan hovered beside her like a satellite, watching her reactions. I led them to the dining room, where Sophie's attention snapped to the curio cabinet. "Interesting pieces. Are these antiques?" She stepped closer, phone already in hand. "Mind if I take a few photos? I love vintage design." Before I could answer, she was snapping pictures of the sideboard, the grandfather clock in the corner, the cabinet itself. Ethan jumped in. "Sophie's really into interior design. She has fantastic taste, I'm sure." I escaped to the kitchen, grateful for the excuse. Something in her tone when she said antiques didn't sound like admiration. It sounded like appraisal. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Ethan asked about the business, told me about his commercial real estate job, but Sophie dominated the conversation with surgical precision. 4 locations, Ethan mentioned. That must generate significant revenue. She cut into her fillet, eyes fixed on me. "What's the annual turnover for something like that?" "It varies. The economy impacts furniture sales more than people think." I kept my voice light, professional. "But you must be doing well. This neighborhood, the house, the business," she gestured with her fork. "You've built something substantial." Ethan shifted in his seat. "Dad worked incredibly hard, built it from a single storefront. Really impressive." Sophie sipped her wine. "We drove through Taunus View the other day. Those estates are stunning. That's where I picture raising a family. Good schools, safe neighborhoods. Important for kids, don't you think? The hint hung between us like smoke. Ethan focused on his plate, cutting his steak into smaller and smaller pieces. Tanis View is expensive, I said cautiously. Of course, but you can't put a price on a grandchild's future. Her hand covered Ethan's on the table. We're still figuring out our living situation. My current apartment is impossible. The landlord refuses basic repairs. With a baby on the way, we need proper space. Ethan finally spoke. We're looking at apartments, Dad. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy, but something safe. Sophie's smile widened. Ethan says you're very generous with family. That's rare these days. I took a long sip of water, buying time. Every instinct honed over 40 years in business fired warnings. These weren't casual dinner questions. She was establishing needs, testing reactions, calculating possibilities. The rest of the meal followed suit. Sophie commented on the furniture, then asked what the pieces cost. She mentioned her student loans, then wondered aloud how Ethan's family handled financial planning. She praised the house, then noted how much maintenance older homes required. Ethan barely spoke. When he did, it was to smooth her edges. What Sophie means is, or she's just excited about the wedding. When they finally left around 10:30 p.m., Sophie hugged me at the door. She leaned in close, her perfume overwhelming, and whispered, "Thank you for being so understanding. Ethan talks about your generosity all the time. We're lucky to have you." Ethan's hug was brief, distracted. He seemed eager to leave. I stood in the doorway, watching their taillights disappear down the street. Sophie's head was already bent over her phone, illuminated by the screen's glow. Inside, I cleared the table slowly, washing Barbara's porcelain by hand even though the dishwasher would have been easier. My hands moved through the routine while my mind replayed the evening. The way Sophie photographed my house without asking, the targeted questions about money, real estate, my generosity. Ethan's silence, his slumped shoulders, the way he avoided my eyes. I told myself it was nerves, wedding stress, but my gut, the same instinct that had saved me from disastrous partnerships, bad investments, deals that looked perfect on paper but felt wrong, screamed. The look in her eyes as she scanned my house wasn't a future daughter-in-law seeing her child's grandfather's home. She was calculating. I woke Friday at 6 a.m. after 3 hours of fractured sleep. Every time I drifted off, I saw Sophie's face at my dinner table, heard her voice asking about revenue and real estate. The coffee maker gurgled as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the chairs they'd occupied 12 hours earlier. The details wouldn't let go. The way she held her phone when photographing the sideboard, not like someone admiring furniture, but like someone cataloging inventory. Her questions weren't conversational, they were reconnaissance. And Ethan's expression, that hollow, defensive look I'd seen once before, 3 years ago when Kirsten controlled every aspect of his life. History, repeating itself while I watched. By 10 a.m., I was in my office, but the inventory reports lay ignored on my desk. I opened LinkedIn on my computer and typed Sophie Kruger, Frankfurt, into the search bar. Her profile popped up, polished and professional, wellness manager at Alpine Serenity Health Center. Photos of her at charity events, smiling beside other volunteers, glowing recommendations from colleagues. Everything looked legitimate. I scrolled deeper. Older posts, comment sections on photos, tags from other users. Patterns emerged. 2 years ago, dinner at the steakhouse by the Opera Square with my generous friend. 3 years ago, photos at exclusive restaurants with different men in each. Comments from someone named Melissa kept appearing. Another rich one. "You're so lucky, sis." Again. The word stuck like a burr. Again, a rich one. Not again a great guy or again a winner. Rich. That was the qualifying trait. I stared at the screen, my chest tight. It felt invasive, ugly. But Ethan was my son, my only child. If someone was targeting him, if she was targeting him, I had to know. My phone sat on the desk. I picked it up 3 times before finally scrolling through my contacts to Leonard Lane. We'd met at business networking events and charity drives. He worked in credit verification services. We weren't close friends, but we were cordial. The conversation was short and awkward. "Leonard, I need a favor off the record. It's about my son's fiancée." He didn't ask why. "Give me your details," Leonard called back at 4:30 p.m. "Thomas, this is off the record, completely off the record." "Understood." "Sophie Marie Kruger. Current address lists Mainz, but that's recent. Previous address was a luxury complex in Wiesbaden, evicted 11 months ago for non-payment. Rent was $2,800 monthly." I wrote the numbers down, my handwriting sharp and precise. "She has $43,000 in credit card debt across 7 maxed-out cards. 2 collection agencies have initiated legal action. She started bankruptcy proceedings months ago but never followed through." The pen stopped moving. 43,000. Classic pattern, Thomas. Living beyond her means for years. The income she reports doesn't come close to matching the spending, not even close. After I hung up, I sat motionless in my office chair. 43,000 in debt. Evicted from a luxury apartment, 2 lawsuits. None of it showed up on social media, where every photo screamed designer clothes, expensive dinners, weekend trips to the Hessian wine regions, spa days, jewelry. The pregnancy announcement, the rushed wedding, the Taunus View comments at dinner. She wasn't marrying Ethan. She was marrying access to money she thought he had. Or, more accurately, money she thought I had. I called Ethan at 6:10 p.m. after business hours when I knew he'd be home. I'd rehearsed the conversation in my head, planned to stay calm and rational. "Son, we need to talk about Sophie. Have you checked her financial background?" "What?" His voice sharpened instantly. "What are you talking about?" "I had someone pull her credit report. Ethan, she has significant debt over 43,000 euros. She was evicted from her last apartment. There are collection agencies." "You did what?" The explosion came through the phone like a physical force. "You investigated her. You called in favors to spy on my fiancée. Ethan, listen to me. She has 7 maxed-out credit cards, 2 active lawsuits. These are serious financial issues. And with a baby on the way?" "How dare you?" His voice cracked. "Do you have any idea how controlling that is? How invasive? I'm 35 years old, Dad. I don't need you vetting my life like I'm a teenager. I'm trying to protect you. These are facts. She was paying rent she couldn't afford. She's drowning in debt. You just can't stand seeing me happy. You never approved of anyone I was with. Kirsten, Madeline, Janine, you found problems with all of them. This isn't about approval." I kept my voice steady, fighting to stay calm. "This is about a woman with a pattern of financial irresponsibility who suddenly shows up pregnant and wants to marry in 2 weeks. Ethan, please just think about the timeline. You can't stand the thought of me being with someone you didn't choose." His words came out raw, hurt. "You never could. I should have known you'd find a way to ruin this. Ethan, don't call me again." The line went dead. I sat there with the phone in my hand, staring at the darkened screen. Outside my office window, the sunset painted Frankfurt's sky orange and purple, beautiful and meaningless. I pulled up Sophie Ku's Instagram again on my computer. Every photo screamed luxury, designer handbags, expensive restaurants, weekend getaways. None of it matched a wellness manager's salary. None of it made sense unless someone else was paying, or unless she was hunting for someone who would. The pregnancy test could be real or fabricated. The rushed wedding ensured minimal time for questions. The Taunus View comments were anchors, setting expensive expectations early. Ethan's defensiveness kept interference minimal. She'd done this before. Melissa's comment proved it. Another rich one. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a notepad, something I did when problems needed solving. At the top of the page, I wrote, "Sophie Kruger, what I know." The list grew. Debt amounts, eviction date, the timeline of her relationship with Ethan, every targeted question from last night's dinner. When I finished, 3 pages were covered in notes. Ethan wouldn't listen. That was clear. He'd chosen his side, and it wasn't mine, which meant I had 2 weeks until the wedding. 2 weeks to find proof she was targeting him. 2 weeks to stop this before she destroyed my son. I clicked back to her Instagram and studied every photo with new eyes. Somewhere in that carefully curated illusion was the truth. Somewhere were clues. I just had to find them. A week had passed since Ethan hung up on me. 7 days of silence that felt like months. I'd left voicemails, 8 of them. The first 2 were calm, rational explanations of the credit report. By the 4th, I was pleading. By the 7th, I stopped sounding composed. None were returned. Thursday afternoon, I drove by Ethan's apartment in Mayence. Sophie's white Audi sat in his parking spot like a territorial marker. I circled the block twice before forcing myself to leave. Leonard called Wednesday with more information, his voice reluctant. Thomas, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Ethan drained his savings account. $47,000 gone for the wedding. That's not all. He took out a private loan, $35,000 at 18% interest, just for the venue. I sat in my office, holding the phone long after Leonard hung up. $82,000, Ethan's entire safety net plus debt that would take years to repay for a wedding that would last 4 hours. The invitation arrived with Saturday's mail. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, my name in elegant script. Hotel Nassauer Hof in Wiesbaden, Cultural Center Wiesbaden. Ceremony at noon, February 22nd. I looked up the venue online. Their wedding packages started at $80,000, premium options. The kind Sophie would demand pushed costs well into 6 figures. The math didn't add up. Ethan's salary, his savings, the loan, none of it covered what I was seeing. Someone had guaranteed additional expenses. Monday morning, I called the resort's event coordinator, my voice casual. I'm inquiring about availability for my daughter's wedding. What's included in the royal ceremony on the 22nd? The woman's enthusiasm poured through the phone. Oh, the royal wedding is stunning. Top-tier everything. Open bar with premium selection, live orchestra, French roses, chef's tasting menu for 200 guests. They spared no expense. I thanked her and ended the call. My stomach a hollow cavity. Ethan was drowning, and Sophie was tying stones to his ankles. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, typing messages to Ethan on my phone. Deleted them, typed again, deleted. Son, please call me back. Delete. Ethan, I'm worried about your finances. Delete. I love you and I'm sorry. Delete. Everything sounded either controlling or pathetic. I sent nothing. Wednesday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thomas, it's Sophie. We need to talk privately before the ceremony. It's important for Ethan. Can we meet? I stared at the message for 10 minutes, reading it over and over. She was making a move. But to what end? My instinct, the same sense that had kept me from ruinous deals for 40 years, screamed this was negotiation, not reconciliation. I typed when and where. Her reply came within seconds. Tomorrow evening at your house. Ethan thinks I'm at the bachelorette dinner. 7 p.m. Thursday morning, I drove to an electronics store on Kaiser Street. The salesman was young, enthusiastic about the products displayed on sleek shelves. I need a recorder for business meetings, I told him. He showed me a device the size of a USB stick. This model's excellent, 20-hour battery life, voice activated so it only records when someone speaks. Clear audio up to 5 meters. Is it legal to record conversations in Germany? Absolutely one-party consent law. As long as you're part of the conversation, you can record. I bought it immediately. In my car, I researched German recording laws on my phone. The salesman was right. One-party consent. Legal to record conversations I was part of without informing the other party. I practiced activating the device. A simple button on the side, one red blink, then darkness. I drove home and tested it. Recorded myself reading the newspaper aloud, played it back. My voice sounded foreign and distant, but every word was clear. Whatever Sophie wanted, I'd have proof. Friday evening at 7 p.m., I watched through my front window as Sophie's Audi pulled into my driveway. She stepped out in a soft pink sweater, makeup subtle, hair loose around her shoulders. She looked young, vulnerable, every detail calculated to project innocence. I activated the recorder in my jacket pocket before opening the door. The red light blinked once. "Thomas, thank you for seeing me." Her smile was apologetic, rehearsed. "I know things have been tense." I led her to the living room. She settled on the couch, accepted a glass of water, and her expression softened. "I owe you an apology. I was pushy at dinner. Wedding stress, you understand. I didn't mean to seem materialistic." I watched her performance, recognizing the technique. Soften the target before the real demand. I'd seen it in business negotiations dozens of times. "Ethan loves you so much," she continued. "This distance between you is killing him. I wanted to fix things before the wedding. Can we start over?" Her eyes were wide, earnest, perfectly practiced. If I didn't know what I knew, I might have believed her. "I appreciate you coming, Sophie. I want Ethan to be happy." She smiled. Relief flooded her features. Then, cautiously, "There's one small thing. Ethan's been stressed about money. The wedding cost more than planned." She paused, letting silence do the work. I said nothing. "I was wondering if you could help us with our living situation after the wedding, just temporarily, until we're settled." The test. She was probing my willingness to provide money, measuring my resistance. "We can discuss that after you're married," I said carefully. "Let's focus on the wedding first." Her smile tightened. Not the answer she wanted, but she nodded and left 15 minutes later. After her taillights vanished down the street, I sat in my darkened living room and played the recording. Her voice came through crystal clear, every inflection captured. Tomorrow was the wedding. Whatever Sophie really wanted, she'd ask for it then, and I'd be ready. Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. I'd slept 3 hours, spending the rest pacing my bedroom, running scenarios. Nothing prepared me for what came next. The Hotel Königshof Baden-Baden sprawled at the foot of Feldberg like a palace. I pulled into the circular driveway at 10 a.m., watching crisp uniformed valets rush to arriving cars. Money radiated from every detail: the flawless pavement, towering palms, marble columns framing the entrance. Ice sculptures flanked the doors, massive swans that must have cost thousands. Flower arrangements, 3.5 meters tall, lined the walkway, white roses and orchids in cascading waves. I did the math in my head. 5,000 for flowers alone, possibly more. Ethan's friends arrived, women in designer cocktail dresses, men in expensive suits. I recognized a few faces from his college years. They looked successful, established, the kind of crowd Sophie wanted as witnesses to her triumph. I touched my jacket pocket, feeling the small weight of the recorder. My phone buzzed. Guest lounge, second floor, east wing, 11 a.m., alone. I walked through the grounds to the ceremony room. The ballroom had been transformed into something out of a luxury magazine. Crystal chandeliers reflected light over hundreds of white roses. Golden chairs in perfect rows for 200 guests, a string quartet warming up in the corner. A champagne fountain already flowed, bubbles catching the light. Through an open door, I saw Ethan surrounded by groomsmen. He laughed at something, adjusted his bow tie, checked his watch. He looked genuinely happy. My chest tightened watching him. At exactly 11 a.m., I climbed the stairs to the second floor. The guest lounge was empty, private, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountain. I activated the recorder. The single red blink confirmed it was working, and I slipped it back into my pocket. Sophie entered at 11:01, closing the door softly behind her. The wedding dress was breathtaking. Lena Hosek Kuder, probably. Elegant silk with intricate beading on the bodice, flawless makeup, hair in an elaborate updo. Diamond earrings caught every movement of light. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale, but her eyes were cold math. Thomas, thank you for coming early. Her smile was warm, rehearsed. I know things have been difficult. I nodded, said nothing. She walked to the window, her voice casual. It's a beautiful day. Ethan's so happy. He wishes you two weren't fighting. I want him to be happy, I said carefully. That's all I've ever wanted. She turned. Her smile never reached her eyes. Then let's talk about how to make that permanent. The word hung between us like a suspended blade. Her tone shifted, now businesslike. Thomas, let's be practical. Ethan and I need a house, View, at least $850,000. Sophie, that's a substantial amount. She cut me off. I'm pregnant. We need proper space. You're a grandfather now. That has to mean something. I can help with a down payment 15, maybe 20%, but buying an entire house outright won't work. Her voice turned cold. The mask dropped completely. She stepped closer. I saw the predator clearly now, no longer hidden. Here's what's going to happen. You will buy us this house, full payment this week. And if I don't? Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Then I'll tell everyone the truth that I'm pregnant with your child. Ice flooded my veins, but I kept my voice steady. That's absurd. No one would believe it. She laughed softly, viciously. Really? Who do you think they'll believe? A 63-year-old man or a pregnant 32-year-old woman in a wedding dress? Every word was a calculated blow. I'll say you tried to seduce me at that first dinner, that you sent me inappropriate messages for weeks, that when I rejected you, you tried to sabotage our wedding with fake financial reports. Ethan will never speak to you again. Your business reputation ruined. Everyone loves a scandal. Furniture magnate harasses pregnant son's fiancée. Front page material. She paused, letting it sink in. Or you buy us a house, play the generous grandfather, and everyone's happy. Your choice. You have 60 seconds. The silence stretched thick and suffocating. I stood motionless. 3 seconds. 4. 5. I processed shock, rage, the calculated cruelty of her entire plan. Then I spoke, my voice calm and even. Sophie, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Her smile faltered slightly. Excuse me? I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small recorder, holding it up. The red recording light blinked steadily. Sophie's face drained of color, white as her wedding dress. What is that? Every word from the moment you walked in. She lunged forward, grabbing for the device. Her voice rose to a shriek. Give me that. You can't. That's illegal. I stepped back, moving toward the door. Germany has one-party consent law completely legal. You recorded me. You set me up. I opened the door. Sophie followed, still grabbing for my arm, her composure shattered. I walked quickly down the stairs to the ceremony hall. Her screams followed me. Thomas, wait, please, we can work this out. I didn't mean... Guests in the foyer turned, stared. I didn't stop. I entered the ballroom and went straight to the sound technician near the string quartet. Connect this to your system. Play it now. The technician looked confused. Sir, the ceremony starts soon. Do it now. Sophie stormed in behind me. Mascara started to run, face twisted in panic. Ethan appeared from the groom's room, his expression bewildered. Dad, what's happening? The recording began. Sophie's voice filled the ballroom through crystal-clear speakers. Thomas, let's be practical. Ethan and I need a house. Every guest froze. 200 people trapped in horrified silence. The recording continued. Her pregnancy threat, the seduction accusation, the blackmail demand. Every word captured with perfect clarity. Ethan stood paralyzed. His face cycled through confusion, disbelief, realization, horror. When the recording ended, silence settled over the room like sudden snow. Sophie stumbled backward. Words failed. Apologies died on her lips. Ethan stared at his bride, then at me, then back at Sophie. His voice broke. Tell me he faked it. Tell me that's not real. Sophie opened her mouth, but no convincing lie came out. I watched my son's face break, watched the illusion he'd built shatter into pieces. The wedding was over before it began. The final words of the recording faded into crushing silence. I watched Ethan's face cycle through emotions like channels flipping on a TV. Confusion, denial, desperate hope that this was somehow faked, that his father had fabricated evidence to destroy his happiness. Sophie broke the silence first. Her voice rose to hysteria. He edited it. He manipulated the audio file. Thomas, how could you do this? Ethan turned to me, his eyes pleading. Dad, tell me you faked it, please. My voice came out quiet, calm. Every word is real, Ethan, unedited. I can provide the original file, timestamps, metadata. His face hardened. No acceptance, no belief in the evidence, just a wall slamming up between us. A guest in the front row whispered loud enough to carry through the ballroom. I heard what I heard. That woman blackmailed him. Ethan moved toward Sophie, who had started crying. Real tears streamed down her face. Mascara ran in careful tracks. Perfect victim performance. She clung to his arm. Ethan, he's trying to destroy us. He never wanted you happy. This is revenge because you chose me over him. I stepped forward. Son, listen to what she actually said. She threatened to claim you weren't the father. She demanded $850,000. Ethan's voice broke raw with pain and rage. You've always done this. Every relationship I had, you found something wrong. You can't stand seeing me with someone. The words hit like fists. This isn't about control. She blackmailed me. You heard it. You recorded her without permission. You set her up. His eyes were wet now. His voice trembled with anguish. You're jealous because you've been alone since Mom died, and you can't stand that I'm loved. The accusation hung toxic in the air between us. I opened my mouth, but no answer came. How do you argue with someone who's chosen their illusion over reality, who needs the lie more than the truth? Ethan took Sophie's hand. We're leaving. Never contact me again. Sophie threw me a glance over her shoulder as they headed for the exit, calculation mixed with triumph. She'd lost the wedding, but kept her prize. Some guests stayed seated, unsure. Others began packing up, avoiding eye contact with me. A woman I recognized as Sophie's friend Melissa shouted, "We believe you, Sophie. This is disgusting." But other guests approached me quietly. That recording was clear. I'm sorry about your son. The resort manager appeared, uncomfortable in his crisp suit. Mr. King, we'll handle the cancellation arrangements. No charges for the venue. I nodded, unable to form words. Within an hour, the ballroom emptied. I sat on one of the golden chairs, surrounded by 80,000 worth of flowers and untouched champagne fountains. My phone vibrated constantly. Texts from friends, family, people who'd been there. I didn't read them. A waiter approached nervously. "Sir, can I get you anything?" I shook my head. He retreated, leaving me alone in the wedding that wasn't. I drove home in a fog. The afternoon heat shimmered in waves off the asphalt. My house felt vast and empty when I walked in. Barbara's absence sharp as broken glass, even after 3 years. Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan's number. The message was short, final. I'm not your son anymore. Sophie and I are moving forward together. Don't call. Don't text. You're dead to me. I read it 3 times. Every word felt permanent, carved in stone. Sunday afternoon, a friend forwarded me Sophie's Instagram post. The photo showed her in casual clothes, eyes red from crying. No makeup, calculated authenticity. Caption: Broken heart doesn't even begin to cover it. Ethan's father sabotaged our wedding because he couldn't accept someone loving his son. He recorded a private conversation, edited it to make me look awful, and destroyed the happiest day of my life. To everyone asking, yes, Ethan and I are still together. True love survives attacks. The post had 347 likes, 89 supportive comments. I saw names I recognized, mutual acquaintances, business contacts, people who should know better. Some comments were different. I was there. That recording sounded pretty clear to me, but they were buried under Sophie's supporters. I set my phone down and didn't pick it up for hours. Monday morning, I sat across from Dr. Nathan Berger in his downtown Frankfurt office. He was 58, gray suit, calculating eyes that had seen every kind of family disaster. He'd listened to the recording twice, taken notes, and now delivered his assessment. The recording is completely legal. Germany's one-party consent law is clear. He paused. But she can still sue. Emotional distress, defamation, claim you recorded her in a bathroom or somewhere with an expectation of privacy, though you didn't. Make your life expensive, even if she loses. So she gets away with it. Nathan leaned back. Not necessarily, but you have to be smarter than just having evidence. You need to build a pattern show this isn't an isolated incident. He slid a business card across the desk. Private investigator. Discreet, expensive, but thorough. I pocketed the card. What am I looking for? Her history. Past relationships, financial records, anything showing this is her playbook, not a one-off mistake. If she's done this before, those men might talk. I nodded, feeling pieces of a plan forming. Nathan added quietly, "And Thomas, prepare yourself. Your son may not come back, not soon, maybe never." The words landed heavy and true. As I stood to leave, Nathan mentioned almost casually, "I had someone check hospital records, doctor visits. Sophie Kruger hasn't seen an OB/GYN in 2 years." I froze. She's not pregnant. No medical evidence she is, just 2 brief visits to a community clinic, no follow-ups. She's lying, or she had a very recent miscarriage she didn't mention. I felt rage and something like relief collide. She lied about a pregnancy to rush Ethan into marriage. That would be my assessment. Makes the blackmail even more calculated. She built urgency around a fiction. I sank back into the chair. The cruelty of it, using a fake pregnancy to trap my son, settled over me like wet concrete. I left the law office, stepping into glaring Frankfurt sunlight. I had evidence, a legal recording, proof of Sophie's manipulation, but Ethan chose her anyway. Victory tasted like ash. 3 manila folders lay spread across my desk. The private investigator's report on Sophie's past. First folder, Frank Newman, 45, divorced tech manager from 2022. The investigator found bank statements showing Frank paid Sophie $75,000 after 6 months together. His statement to the investigator, "She threatened to accuse me of assault if I didn't pay. I had a daughter, a business reputation. I paid to make her disappear." Second folder, Sem Demir, 51, real estate investor from 2020. Same pattern, 4 months dating, sudden pregnancy claim, money demand. Sem paid $50,000 before Sophie miscarried 2 weeks later. Third folder, Kyle Nguyen, 48, restaurant chain owner from 2019. He paid $30,000 to end the relationship after she threatened workplace harassment claims. I leaned back, processing the timeline. 3 men in 5 years, $155,000 extorted through threats. Each relationship followed identical steps: charm offensive, rapid escalation, pregnancy or assault accusation, payment, disappearance. The investigator's notes included a chilling line. Subject exhibits textbook predatory financial behavior, targets men 15, 20 years older, established wealth, family reputation to protect. Ethan fit the profile perfectly, not wealthy himself, but with a father who was. It made me sick realizing how calculated it all was. Sophie hadn't fallen for Ethan. She'd researched him like a business acquisition. Wednesday afternoon, I was in my main furniture store location checking inventory when my assistant approached. "Someone wants to speak with you. She says it's personal." A woman stood near the entrance, early 60s, gray hair and a neat bob, wearing simple slacks and a cardigan, a library book tucked under her arm. Her face was tired, kind, with Sophie's cheekbones but none of her hardness. She extended her hand. "Mr. King, I'm Annika Kruger, Sophie's mother. Could we speak privately?" My first instinct was suspicion, another manipulation, but her eyes were direct, sad, genuine. I led her to my office and closed the door. Annika sat, took a deep breath. I owe you an apology, and maybe an explanation. She spoke carefully, as if each word cost something. I saw what happened at the wedding. A friend sent me the video someone posted online. I winced. I hadn't known there was a video. I've watched my daughter manipulate people since she was 16, friends, employers, even me. She stole $12,000 from my savings account 3 years ago. I reported it to the police, then dropped the charges when she cried and promised to change. Her voice didn't waver. She's done this before. Other men? I didn't know the details, but I knew the pattern. She'd date someone wealthy. The relationship ended abruptly. Suddenly she had new furniture, a new car, expensive trips. Why are you telling me this? Annika met my eyes. Because you tried to protect your son, and he rejected you for it. I know that pain. Sophie pushed me away years ago. She only contacts me when she needs money or an alibi. She paused. And because she's planning something else. I saw her texts with her sister Melissa. I borrowed Melissa's phone last month when she left it at my house. I looked. I know it was wrong, but I had to know what Sophie was up to. She handed me her phone. The text thread between Sophie and Melissa read like a criminal blueprint. Sophie. Ethan's broke now, but his dad's loaded. The recording's a problem, but I can spin it. Get Ethan to sue Thomas for emotional distress. We split whatever we win. Melissa. You think Ethan will sue his own father? Sophie. He'll do what I tell him. He's isolated from everyone but me. Give it 2 months, then I'll suggest he deserves compensation for childhood trauma or something. Make it therapy costs. I read it twice, cold rage rising. I looked up at Annika. You're giving me this. Why? Her voice was quiet. Because I failed as a mother somewhere. I don't know where or when, but I created this, and I can't watch her destroy more lives. You have the means to fight back. Ethan's in danger, even if he doesn't see it yet. She added, There's more. Email threads where Sophie discusses targets. A spreadsheet with men she's researched, including income estimates. She treated your son like a corporate takeover. I felt something shift inside me. Not just anger strategy forming. Annika visited me again Thursday morning at a cafe. I'd suggested neutral ground. She brought more evidence. Printouts of Sophie's old social media. Deleted posts bragging about landing wealthy men. We sat for 2 hours. Annika filled gaps the investigator couldn't access. I found myself talking about Ethan's childhood, my late wife, how hard I'd tried after she died. Annika listened, shared her own story. Her husband left when Sophie was 10. She raised both daughters alone on a librarian's salary. Sophie always wanted what they couldn't afford. Annika said, I thought it was normal kid stuff. By the time I realized it was something else, it was too late. The conversation shifted from evidence to something more personal. 2 parents wounded by their children. Over the next week, Thomas and Annika met 3 more times. At first to discuss strategy, exchange information, plan legal steps. But the conversations drifted. Books we'd read, Frankfurt's fickle weather, the loneliness of empty houses. I noticed Annika's careful intelligence, her quiet humor, the way she listened fully. She noticed my fairness, my restraint despite having weapons to legally destroy Sophie. Neither of us named what was happening. But something was there, recognition, comfort in shared pain. Friday afternoon, Annika emailed me a file, Sophie's project spreadsheet. I opened it, my blood pressure spiking. Column headers, name, age, estimated net worth, vulnerabilities, timeline, expected return. Ethan King, 35, 85,000 salary, but father owns furniture business. Father guilt-ridden, isolated, desperate to prove independence. 68 months, 500,000 one time. 9 more names above Ethan's with data going back to 2018. Most had notes. Completed 75,000, completed 50,000, failed too smart, failed had prenup. I forwarded the file to Dr. Nathan Berger immediately. This wasn't just evidence, this was a confession. Annika and I met again Friday evening at the cafe. I slid my laptop across the table, showed her Dr. Berger's reply. This changes everything. We can pursue fraud charges, but we have to be strategic about when we reveal it. Annika nodded slowly. What's the goal? Protect Ethan or punish Sophie? I considered. Both. But protecting Ethan comes first, even if he hates me for it. Annika's hand rested briefly on the table beside mine. Then we do this carefully. Together. The word together sat between us, meaning more than strategy. An email from my private investigator came Thursday morning with the subject line, Urgent New Development. I opened the attachment at my office desk. Screenshots of Sophie's text conversation with a commercial real estate broker filled my screen. She'd found a luxury spa location in Taunus View. Monthly rent $15,000. Her pitch to Ethan came through the messages. We'll be partners. Your business degree. My wellness management experience. We just need startup capital. I scrolled further. Equipment quotes for $180,000. Renovation estimates at $120,000. The final text made my stomach drop. Sophie to the broker. My fiancé is securing a $200,000 business loan. Can you hold the property 2 weeks? I forwarded everything to Annika and Dr. Berger immediately. An hour later, the investigator's follow-up came, marked confidential smoking gun. Attached was Sophie's GmbH registration in Bavaria, created 2 weeks ago. Company name, Alpine Serenity Holding GmbH. Registered agent, Sophie alone, not Ethan. Bank documents showed an offshore connection in the Swiss Alps. The investigator's note explained, standard setup for capital extraction, equipment purchases billed to offshore vendors she controls, shell companies, money disappears, business fails, she vanishes with the capital, target left with $200,000 debt and no assets, recommend immediate intervention. I'd seen this scheme before. Contractors scamming investors, suppliers billing for phantom deliveries. Ethan wasn't a partner, he was a funding source. I called Dr. Berger. I need to stop the loan without revealing my involvement. Can it be done? He thought for a moment. Anonymous tip to the bank's risk department. Attach her credit history, the GmbH structure, the offshore account. Banks hate fraud risk. That afternoon, I created an anonymous email account at a public library downtown. I sat at a computer terminal surrounded by teenagers doing homework and retirees reading news sites. I attached Sophie's credit report, the one Leonard Lane had provided months ago, plus screenshots of the Bavarian GmbH showing her sole ownership and the Swiss Alps account documentation. Subject line, fraud alert, Ethan King loan application. Text, alleged business partner Sophie Kruger has $43,000 existing debt, an offshore account and sole control of the GmbH Mr. King believes is joint. Recommend review for fraud indicators. I hit send before I could second guess it. 2 days later, Ethan's number appeared on my caller ID. I didn't answer. He'd only call if he needed something or wanted to yell. The voicemail he left was short, furious. I know it was you. The bank denied my loan. They said someone sent them info about Sophie. That's low, even for you. I saved the voicemail. An hour later, Sophie called from Ethan's phone. Thomas, we need to talk about boundaries. You're interfering in Ethan's business decisions now. I didn't answer that call either. Over the next week, Sophie started appearing in my orbit too often to be coincidence. Monday morning, she was at the cafe I frequented before work. She approached my table. Thomas, what a surprise. Can we please talk? I miss Ethan having his father in his life. Wednesday, she showed up in my store's parking lot as I left for lunch. Friday, she appeared at a restaurant where I was meeting a supplier, sat at the bar, made eye contact, smiled. Each time, I made sure I wasn't alone. Stayed in the crowded main room of the cafe, called my store manager to walk me to my car, asked the supplier to stay until Sophie left. I recognized the tactic. Create situations that could be misinterpreted, then claim harassment or worse. My phone stayed in my pocket, recording every encounter. Saturday afternoon, Sophie appeared in my store again. this time in athletic wear-tight, strategic. She waited until other customers left and approached my desk. I wanted to apologize privately. Can we talk in your office? I stood but didn't move toward the office. Anything you have to say can be said here. My assistant is right there. I gestured to Janine, my store manager, watching from 3 meters away. Sophie's voice dropped, intimate. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I understand why you were protective. Maybe we can start over. Just you and me. Her hand moved to my arm. I stepped back. Janine, could you join us, please? Sophie was already leaving. That evening I met Annika at the Museum of Modern Art, Frankfurt, our 4th date, though neither of us called it that. We walked through the contemporary wing, discussing a sculpture that reminded Annika of a book she was reading. I caught myself smiling genuinely, something I hadn't done since before Ethan's engagement. Afterward, over wine, I told her about Sophie's attempts to corner me alone. Annika's face tightened. She's setting a trap. Classic Sophie create a situation where it's her word against yours. I know. I'm documenting everything. Never alone, always recording. She touched my hand. I hate that you have to live like this, but I'm glad you're careful. The touch lingered longer than necessary. Neither of us pulled away. Over the next 2 weeks, Annika and I fell into a rhythm. Coffee twice a week, dinner on weekends, long phone calls about everything but our children. Annika introduced me to contemporary fiction I'd never have read. I discovered I liked her. I took her to a symphony concert at the Wiesbaden Cultural Center. She cried during Brahms. One evening in her townhouse, reviewing legal documents became background noise to conversations about our lives before the damage. I talked about my late wife 8 years gone, how I'd stopped living and just functioned. Annika shared about her ex-husband, the loneliness of raising difficult daughters alone. Neither of us said, "I'm falling for you." But we both knew it. Late one night, I sat in my home office staring at the framed photo of Ethan from his high school graduation. My phone buzzed. Another blocked call. Probably Sophie. I thought about the investigators' reports, the bank intervention, the careful documentation of Sophie's seduction attempts. I was protecting my son, but Ethan saw it as war. The question that had haunted me since February resurfaced with new force. What if I'm wrong? Not about Sophie, the evidence was overwhelming, but about the method, the public confrontation, the continued interference. Maybe some lessons can't be taught, only learned through pain. I drove to Annika's townhouse without calling first. She opened the door, saw my face, and pulled me inside without questions. We sat on her couch, her hand in mine, as I voiced the doubts. Ethan's life is falling apart. Maybe if I'd handled the wedding differently, private conversation instead of public recording, maybe if I'd let him take the loan, learned the hard way when Sophie disappeared. Annika listened fully before answering. Sophie destroyed 3 other men's lives before Ethan. You had evidence she was going to blackmail you. What were your options? Pay her? Let her keep extorting? But Ethan made his choices, she said firmly. You gave him information. He rejected it. You can't save someone from themselves. I'm a father watching his son make terrible decisions and doing the only thing I can. Gather evidence so when Ethan finally opens his eyes, the truth is right there in front of him. The truth doesn't stop being true just because it hurts. I leaned into her touch, feeling something in my chest loosen. That weekend, I met with Dr. Nathan Berger to finalize the legal response. He'd prepared 2 versions, defensive and offensive. The defensive keeps everything discreet, Doctor. Berger explained. The offensive makes it very public, very ugly. Sophie's past victims would testify. Her financial frauds would be detailed, but Ethan's name is on the civil suit. He'd be dragged through it all. I stared at both documents. My son's signature was on the lawsuit against me, but my son was also a victim, manipulated into attacking his own father. I chose the offensive version. Ethan needs to see the whole truth, even if he hates me for it. Late that night, Annika and I walked through her neighborhood. The air had finally cooled. When this is all over, the civil suit, the revelations, everything, Ethan might still not forgive you, she said. I know. Can you live with that? I thought about the past 3 months, uncovering Sophie's schemes, the wedding confrontation, losing Ethan, finding Annika. My answer surprised me. Yes, because I'll know I did everything possible to save him, even if he never sees it that way. The Frankfurt Regional Court rose from downtown like a monument to order, glass and concrete battling June heat. I sat at the polished defense table beside Dr. Berger, watching Sophie's lawyer arrange his documents with practiced confidence. Judge Sigrid Hoffman presided. Mid-50s sharp gaze, known for shredding baseless claims. Sophie's lawyer, Dr. Gunther Seidel, delivered his opening with theatrical flair. Thomas King, jealous father, manipulative controller, destroyed his son's happiness out of pure malice. Ethan sat in the gallery behind Sophie in an ill-fitting suit. He'd lost weight. His face was pale, unreadable. Annika sat alone 3 rows back. Our eyes met briefly. She nodded encouragement. Dr. Berger waited beside me with predatory patience, his yellow notepad full of notes. 3 evidence boxes stacked at his feet. Sophie took the witness stand and swore the oath with practiced sincerity. Her lawyer led her through the narrative. She'd fallen in love with Ethan, looked forward to joining his family. But Thomas had been hostile from their first meeting. He questioned my finances, researched my background without permission, and then recorded a private conversation where I unhappily joked, admittedly, about needing a house. Her voice trembled, perfectly staged. He played that recording at our wedding in front of 200 guests. It destroyed everything. Ethan lost his job from the stress. We lost our savings. All because Thomas couldn't accept someone loving his son. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Dr. Berger cross-examined not aggressively. He asked 3 questions. Ms. Kruger, how many men have you dated in the past 5 years who were significantly older and financially established? Sophie hesitated. I don't see how that's relevant. Dr. Berger smiled. Your Honor, it will become very relevant. Dr. Berger began methodically. Your Honor, this isn't about a father's jealousy. It's about a documented con artist who's pulled this identical scheme on at least 3 prior victims. He presented first the audio forensic analysis, expert testimony confirming the wedding recording was authentic and unedited, with verified timestamps and metadata. Sophie's lawyer objected repeatedly. Judge Hoffman overruled each time. I'll hear the evidence, counsel. Next came Sophie's financial history. The credit report showing $43,000 debt, the eviction, the collection lawsuits, then the GmbH registration in Bavaria for Alpine Serenity, holding GmbH Sophie's name only, though she'd told Ethan they were partners. The offshore account in the Swiss Alps opened 3 weeks before the wellness pitch. Bank statements showing the wellness center plan was just a shell to siphon Ethan's loan. Dr. Berger's presentation was surgically precise, each document built on the last. Ethan shifted in his seat. His face paled with each revelation. The defense calls Frank Newman. A man in his mid-40s entered the courtroom. Expensive suit, graying temples, successful but visibly ashamed. He swore the oath, sat, avoided looking at Sophie. Mr. Newman, how do you know the plaintiff? I dated her for about 6 months 3 years ago. How did the relationship end? Newman took a deep breath. She told me she was pregnant, that it was mine. Then she said she needed $100,000 for medical care and to disappear discreetly. Or she'd tell my ex-wife I'd impregnated her during our custody battle. My daughter was 12. I couldn't risk losing custody. What did you do? I paid $75,000, everything I could liquidate quickly. 2 weeks later, she texted that she'd miscarried. Then she vanished, changed her number, moved away. He presented transfer receipts, screenshots of texts where Sophie explicitly demanded money. The courtroom was silent except for someone's sharp inhale. Ethan's. Sophie's lawyer tried damage control. Your Honor, Mr. Newman's claims are unproven, and Dr. Berger interrupted. We have two more victims prepared to testify. Sem Demir paid $50,000 under similar circumstances in 2020. Kyle Nguyen paid $30,000 in 2019. Same pattern: fake pregnancy, blackmail, payment, disappearance. He slid their sworn affidavits to the judge. Judge Hoffman read, her face darkening. Sophie stood suddenly. These men are lying. This is a conspiracy. Thomas paid them to— Ms. Kruger, sit down. Sophie's lawyer whispered urgently, but she was panicking now. The composed mask cracked. I watched Ethan in the gallery. His face cycled through every emotion: disbelief, realization, horror. Judge Hoffman didn't deliberate long. I've heard enough. This lawsuit is not only baseless, it appears part of an ongoing pattern of fraud and extortion. She looked directly at Sophie. Ms. Kruger, the recording Mr. King made was legal under German law. The evidence suggests you did exactly what that recording captured, attempted to extort him for money. Your claims are without merit. The gavel fell. The lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, Ms. Kruger, you are ordered to pay the defendant's court costs in the amount of $47,000. Sophie's face went white. I'm also referring this matter to the public prosecutor for investigation of potential fraud and extortion charges. Court is adjourned. The gavel's crack echoed like a gunshot. I left the courthouse into late afternoon heat, loosening my tie. Dr. Berger was triumphant. That went better than expected. Hoffman doesn't refer to prosecutors lightly. Annika appeared, hugged me briefly, decorum in public, but relief in her eyes. Then I saw Ethan standing by a parking meter, alone, looking lost. Sophie was 20 meters away on the phone, back to us. Her voice rose in argument. I approached Ethan slowly. My son. He looked at me, and for the first time in 6 months, he really saw me. Dad, those men, what they said. His voice broke, and I recognized the sound, his certainty shattering. I'm sorry you had to hear it this way, but you needed to. Ethan's next words came hoarse. The offshore account, the fake pregnancy, was any of it real? I wanted to comfort him with lies, but I chose truth. I don't believe so, Ethan. The investigator found evidence. She researched you before you even met. Your income, my business, everything. She targeted you. Ethan leaned against the parking meter. I quit my job for her, sold my apartment, sued my own father for someone who just called me an idiot, who was never pregnant, who was never anything real. I stepped closer. You weren't blind, Ethan. You were manipulated by a professional. That's the difference. I lost everything. I have nothing. I am nothing. I pulled my son into a hug, the first physical contact in 8 months. You have me. You always had me. That never changed. Not once. Ethan broke then, sobbing on my shoulder like he hadn't since childhood. I held him, feeling something fundamental click back into place. In the restaurant, Sophie looked up and saw police officers approaching. I'd called them before Ethan arrived, had them wait. The forgery documents, the conspiracy on audio, the open warrant from the judge's fraud referral, everything converged. Sophie tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Raphael was arrested beside her, both charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and document forgery. By morning, Sophie had fled Frankfurt against bail, the city, and the $47,000 judgment behind her. I didn't pursue her. She was out of Ethan's life, and that was the victory that mattered. August arrived with Frankfurt thunderstorms that washed the city clean. Ethan moved temporarily into my guest room, started therapy, began job hunting. The process was slow. Rebuilding a life takes longer than destroying one. But I watched my son gradually return. Smiles at breakfast, interest in conversations, plans for the future. One evening, Annika, Ethan, and I sat on the back patio. I took Annika's hand. We have something to tell you. Annika and I are engaged. Ethan's reaction surprised us. He grinned. About time, Dad. She's way too good for you. Annika laughed, and I felt something I hadn't in years. completeness. Late August, I hosted a small engagement party at my house. Close friends, nothing extravagant, everything real. Annika wore a simple blue dress, her smile radiant. Ethan stood as my best man. Healthy weight returning, clarity back in his eyes. When it was time for toasts, Ethan tapped his glass, stood. I need to say something. For months, I thought my father was the enemy. Controlling, jealous, trying to ruin my happiness. His voice grew stronger. But the truth is, sometimes the greatest act of love is saying no when everyone else says yes. It means standing between someone you love and danger, even if they hate you for it. Ethan looked at me. Dad, you saved my life. You let me hate you, sue you, cut you off, and you never stopped trying to protect me. That's not control. That's love. So thank you for not giving up, even when I gave up on you. My throat tightened, but I managed. You're my son. I'd do it again, every time. Ethan raised his glass. To Thomas and Annika, two people who know real love means speaking hard truths and standing firm when everything says walk away. The small gathering applauded, glasses clinked, and I looked around. My son restored, a woman I loved by my side, a future built on ruins. The revenge wasn't destroying Sophie. It was this, saving Ethan and finding Annika. That's the victory that counts. And now it's your turn. Did this story touch you? Let us know in the comments. What city are you watching from? Would you have done the same as Thomas or differently? Share your thoughts with us. If you want more of these profound stories, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a new one. And if you know someone going through or who's been through something similar, share this video with them. Sometimes one story is all it takes to show you're not alone. Until the next story, stay strong.